and let us all do we can to build a better future.
Hashtag abandon Biden. No, that's a real hashtag that's being spread around here now. Hashtag abandon Biden because Biden has abandoned progressives. Biden has abandoned his policies. And already Latinos, Black voters, all voters in general are kind of tired of Biden. Now, I said that this would happen. I remember saying this would happen. So let's go ahead and play this video here about people leaving Biden.
One of the big issues for voters in Michigan is the issue of how President Biden is handling the war in the Middle East, with some calling to, quote, abandon Biden over his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. Of course, Michigan has one of the largest Muslim populations in the country. Is there anything President Biden can do to win back those voters?
So there's a lot that has to be done, and this is a very serious issue. I lived in Dearborn for 40 years with a man that I loved. I moved last year because of redistricting. I know this community. They are hurting. All of us in this country need to understand what's happening in Gaza right now.
Oh, my goodness. Hold on. Let's just rewind that again. Typical politician answer.
Muslim populations in the country. Is there anything President Biden can do to win back those voters?
Okay, now listen, you're going to hear an atypical answer from a politician. But remember, Biden and the Democrats in 2020 said they were going to build this huge coalition together. And they're not. Have they done anything to maintain it? Have they done anything to follow through with their promises of everyone that was supposedly in that big tent? Yeah, they did not.
So there's a lot that has to be done, and this is a very serious issue. I lived in Dearborn for 40 years with a man that I loved. I moved last year because of redistricting. I know this community. They are hurting. All of us in this country need to understand what's happening in Gaza right now. You can fight about how many thousands of people have been killed, but 6,000 to 8,000 children have been killed. 85% of the people in Gaza have had to leave their homes. They're living in shelters. Disease is going up. There's one toilet for 220 people, one shower for 4,500 people. They don't have food. They don't have medicine. They don't have utilities. And I can't tell you the number of families that I've spoken to who've lost entire families. Entire families. We got to show some empathy and compassion. A Jewish baby and a Palestinian baby are babies. I don't want to see any baby die. So first of all, we got to take that on. We got to get a ceasefire. This has to stop.
Well, gee, you politicians could have actually done it. You know, see, the thing is, like, look, all right, got to bring this up here. We know how the lobby groups run. We know how the corporations run Congress. You know, hey, don't forget what Dick Durbin said about the banks. They run this place. You know, if this was such a huge concern, politicians in Washington, D.C., you do realize you have some political power, some influence, some authority to kind of weigh in and say, well, wait a minute, we need to stop this bombing right away. You're not really doing anything. You're not tactically doing anything to end this crisis. What you're doing is laying down the foundations for the next war, for the next conflict.
And I agree with Lindsay. If anything good comes out of this crisis, we need everybody to.
What good can come out of this crisis? What, 20,000 dead? 3 of the hostages were shot, not by Hamas, but by Israel. The IDF, to be more precise. That's what happened. Isn't that beautiful to see? Isn't that frightening? Isn't that disgusting? All these lives lost. And it could have been avoided, and our politicians could have stopped it.
To come together and get a strong two-state solution.
Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, thank you so much for your time this morning.
But let's push forward from here. Let's talk about the economy, the unemployment rate.
When I'm talking to Black people, they're very concerned about the environment. It's not just in what has been passed. People are saying, what are you going to do for me now? In addition to that, there's a lot of, when we know that a lot of young voters and first-time voters engage in the process because they wanted to see criminal justice reform. That simply has not happened. We also knew that a lot of people that we talked to were interested in voting rights. and making sure voting rights legislation was passed. That hasn't happened. In addition to that, that there has to be the metrics. I think there's a disconnect in terms of the metrics in which sometimes the party uses as the metrics of success and how people see success. So while there is a low unemployment rate, there's a lot of economic anxiety among Black voters that I'm talking to that are interested in literally what does this mean economically in this kind of environment where they're seeing the rise of racism, when they're seeing the destruction of affirmative action and those kind of programs, that leads a certain level of uncertainty of what our economic future is.
You know, Latasha, let me stick with you before we go to a break. You know, the President Biden's mantra, and I think it's a terrific mantra, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. But if that alternative is Trump or any Republican, given all the things that haven't happened from the Black voters' perspective, is there any way that those voters would either vote for the Republican, or is the bigger danger they stay home?
Here's the thing. I've covered this on the show before. Recent polling data is showing that Black voters are either one, choosing to vote independent, sit this election out, or surprise, surprise, liberal Democrats actually vote Republican and probably vote for Trump. Because the alternative with Bidenomics, it has failed to follow through. Look at the price of inflation. The economy is going to be the number one issue. It's not going to be identity politics. It's not going to be social issues. It's going to be the economy. Across the board, Americans are struggling to maintain their households, pay the rent, make sure there's gas in the car, food in their belly, get their medicines. I mean, come on, folks. There's a lot of crazy stuff that's happening right now. And a lot of Americans want to know when the hurting is going to stop.
You know, I think the biggest danger is staying home. I think that Black voters are actually more sophisticated than the media likes to give us credit for, that we're very pragmatic voters. And so at the end of the day, will there be a run to Trump? Absolutely not. I think what we'll see is...
Okay. Again, you're assuming that all Black voters are just going to vote Democrat. Okay, well, let's look at what we got under Biden, especially... Did anything improve for Black people? In fact, did anything improve for anybody at all in this country under Biden? The answer is no. Things got progressively worse. And it's the economy. It's the economy. It's the economy. And to my audience, I know one thing. All of you had these conversations with friends, family members, coworkers. Sooner or later, the price of goods and services is brought up. How everyone is kind of struggling to get by. You don't give away too much of your details, but all the conversations do lead up to the economy. All of you are hurting. All of you are concerned. I know I'm concerned. There's a lot of uncertainty here. And until we're able to really get an idea of what the Democrats want to try and do, say for the fact of, oh, they're running with lesser evilism, then it should come to no surprise to any of these pundits that, yes, voters will look for an alternative. They could probably sit this one out. That's their right to do so as voters.
People be so discontented with the process that they're so frustrated that they'll disengage. And so that's the bigger issue. And I think there are three things that we got to do. One, it has to be more money. You have to make sure that they have a message. And I think I agree with Cornell exactly, that there has to be a message that's tailored directly to certain constituency groups. And that you have to make sure that you're lifting up, you have your messengers who is actually giving the message. When we're looking at television ads, that's not going to get it. That is not where a lot of people in the communities that we're talking to get their news from, or actually get the newest information around what Biden has done. And I think that those are going to be the three things that he's going to have to do going forward to get the bill to support that. When I'm talking about...
Now, let's also talk about Latino voters now, too. Because when Representative Jasmine is asked about Latino Texas Democrats in the House, the U.S. House pushback as White House entertains GOP border policy, you think she gets do you hear a straightforward answer? Get ready for word salad here, folks. It's going to be great. It's going to be epic.
Welcome to you, my friend. I got so many questions for you. I'm going to focus on this issue first and then bring you back. Yeah. Latino Democrats in your state are pushing back against the White House considering a revival of many Trump-era immigration policies, this in exchange for aid to Israel and Ukraine. They're saying a reversal of asylum protections is unacceptable. How far should a compromise with Republicans on border policy go to secure Ukraine and Israel funding?
Yeah, Alex, it's great to see you. And I'm like Julie. Listen, I'm trying to get rich.
Oh, wow. Great. Wait, way to introduce yourself.
I mean, because yeah, they go back and forth all the time. I do want the American people to understand that the Democrats have a multitude of bills that we've proposed. Of course, we've not had hearings or markups on those bills, but I want to say we have over 30 really big bills as it relates to real immigration reform. And right now, what the Republicans are proposing is that they take a butcher knife to something that needs a scalpel. I can tell you without any hesitation that there is a migrant crisis in this country. I can say that as a Democrat, but how do we solve it is the question. And what we know is that the Republicans have never been able to do right.
Okay, hold on. Before we go on with the word salad, here's why there's a migrant crisis. The previous Democratic and Republican presidential administrations, yes, Republican and Democratic presidential administrations, have helped implement and continue on the ridiculous war on drugs, which has led to the rise of the cartels, which has led to the rise of gang warfare. There's also been plenty of sanctions and coups and regime change wars and sanctions impacting said governments in Central and South America, causing political instability, the rise of tyrants and dictators and warlords. Now, if you're an average person just trying to get on by in this crazy world, and yes, we do live in a crazy world, it's always been this way, you're going to do the right thing and try and get your family up out of there and flee. And it's been going on like this for decades now. So that's why there is a border crisis. That's why there is a migrant crisis. That's why there are kids in cages. That's why all this is happening, because of U.S. foreign domestic policies that are impacting Central and South America because of the war on drugs. And let's face it, the war on drugs is just prohibition. And prohibition, that turned out well, right? Nobody's going to drink alcohol. In what reality did anyone think that that would actually work out? That would actually be a good idea? We're banning alcohol for forever. I'm sorry, but if you have a rough day or dealing with a lot of shite, you can't look me in the eye and tell me you won't pour yourself a glass, okay? Beer, wine, whiskey, whatever, to get on by. Same thing with the war on drugs. Plus, not to mention, when you have big pharma helping implement the opioid crisis here, causing people to be addicted to drugs. That's why there's a crisis. But, blame Republicans, blame Democrats, No, I do blame both parties because of the policies that both parties have issued. Now, continue on with the word salad.
On immigration policy. Most of the time when they bring about some sort of policies, it's about doing more of what they do really well, which is to be oppressive of people that need help the most. And so the idea that we're going to tell people that are seeking asylum or people that are trying to flee a war-torn country that they cannot enter our country and basically leave them out in the cold, I think is cruel. But, getting cruelty from this party is pretty much more of the same that we normally get. So the question is, are we willing to, on one hand, say that we're going to honor our obligations to our friends and our allies and support them in their time of need, while also saying that we are going to tell other people that need us to be the America that we have historically been, the land of the free, the land of opportunity.
Okay, just remember, I know Trump gets a lot of blame for those kids in cages, but remember, those cages were built under a guy named Obama, right? A Democrat. That's who. By the way, this is the same Democrats and liberals who like to say, we welcome everybody. Hey, the sanctuary cities are failing, okay? There was never infrastructure put in place for these sanctuary cities. Number two, the canary in the coal mine was Martha's Vineyard. And how all those people responded when the migrants came to their front doorstep. Isn't that special?
Those people, absolutely not. There's no opportunities here for you.
Wow, you've kind of synopsized it right there. But let me ask you, how amenable do you think Speaker Johnson's going to be to whatever agreement the Senate and White House comes up with? And what are the consequences if your colleagues in the Senate go home for the holidays without a deal?
Yeah, this is a wild card, Alex. None of us know this guy. I mean, those on the Republican side don't know him. And I honestly would argue that many of his constituents don't know him either. I don't really know what Speaker Johnson will do, but I will tell you this, that unlike McCarthy, if Speaker Johnson does make a phone call to Hakeem Jeffries and says, this is what I can deliver out of my caucus, this is what we've got on the table, tell me where y'all stand. Thus far, he has at least been an honest broker. So that's one thing that we got that we didn't have in McCarthy. But, you know, this is a guy that has been functioning within the fringes. He's been part of kind of that big MAGA movement. And so the idea that he would allow for something that actually is more so a middle ground to come to the floor, I just don't know that I see it. I think that if it isn't MAGA'd up to the max, then he's just not going to push it forward.
Oh boy. Okay. Congresswoman Cockett, we're going to have you stay with us. I want to hear from you again on the reporting about that missing Russian binder mystery. I know you have some.
Biden, Democrats, what do you have left to deliver? What can you share? What I mean, look, they're losing voters. And they're very calm about this, surprisingly, because now they're banking on Trump winning the nomination. I know there's all these legal issues that Donald Trump is dealing with. Well, let me be clear here. Let me be extremely clear here about Donald Trump. You can't use him as your end-all, be-all reason. Lesser evilism is no longer working. Yes, you could scare people, but at this point, the economy is scaring more people, okay? People are afraid of being homeless. People are afraid of losing their medicine. People are afraid of losing their insurance, their Social Security. Look, how much clearer do I have to make this? The economy is the number one issue, and voters are leaving the Democrats because the Democrats have failed the people. Biden has never followed through with his promise. Bidenomics is not working for the American people. And I've asked this question so many times, hey, how's Bidenomics working for you? But the answer is very clear and understandable. None of you like it. All of you are struggling. I see the stories in the live stream chat. I see your comments. I see your concerns. We're worried about our loved ones. We're worried about our mental health. And yet the Democrats are stuck in this illusion of, oh, if we bring up Trump, if we use him as our scapegoat, if we use the Republican Party as the villains, okay, fine. Yes, I know what to expect from the Republican Party. But I also know what to expect from the Democratic Party because both parties are the same, because they're both owned by corporations. And you're expecting people to be obedient and not see things for how they are. No matter who sits on the throne or who controls the House or Senate, nothing is changing because it's run by a lot of rich sociopaths who are leading us down to what? World War III? Great. I didn't have that on my bingo card. I do hope that there isn't a military conflict that does involve nukes flying in the air because there's still so much I want to do. And I'm pretty sure there's a lot that all of you want to do as well. So with that being said, wrapping this all up, you're getting nothing but word salad from pundits and Democrats who are still stuck in 2016 and 2020 mindset because they have failed to adapt and change and read the room. Voters have been patient with Democrats, but that patience has evaporated.